Great, Jas. It's good to be here.
I know you're busy. You've been doing this for a very long time with realestateLawyers.ca. How long has it been now?
Well, I'm a real estate lawyer for 35 years, but the realestateLawyers.ca, I just joined as a senior partner several years ago. And the main reason was that we go to the client to sign the papers. So you don't have to deal with traffic. You don't have to miss work. You want to sign in the evenings. You want to sign in the weekend. You want to meet at a coffee shop like we're at right now. We'll meet you to sign the papers. And that is a terrific advantage we enjoy.
It's obviously you're not able to be in 20 different places because you guys do a lot of transactions. Who's going out and doing all this?
We have our own commissioners who can actually witness an affidavit. And I am available by telephone to answer any questions. And in my experience, because they have done so many, there are a few times when I'm needed, but I am available to answer any question, any problem.
Fantastic.
And people love it.
So there's been a lot of hot topics in the real estate industry, and that's why, it's very timely. I wanted to make sure you and I got an opportunity to sit down. I wanted to start with a lot of calls and emails that my team and I have been personally getting on assignments. Essentially we're talking about when it comes to new construction, condos or homes, but more, I'm sure you see it with condos more than anything else. Let's start off with something basic, Mark. What is an assignment?
So an assignment is where you have an original buyer who, let's say 3 or 4 years ago, has bought a condominium from a builder. Usually takes about 3 to 4 years till it's ready to be completed and moved in. And now the original buyer has a change of plans. It's 4 years. They don't want to move in.
Financial hardship.
A lot of reasons. So they decide they would like to assign or flip their agreement before they actually have to close with the builder. So that's basically what an assignment is. Buyer number one from a builder transferring the contract to buyer number two, typically for a profit.
Okay, now what does buyer number one need to know?
Buyer number one needs to understand a few things. Number one, will the builder give permission? This is not a given. Most builder contracts say you cannot do this.
Why do you think that is?
Well, builders in general, they don't know if they're going to sell out. They don't want their buyers to be competing with them, selling their units for a profit while the builders is doing it. And so before you do anything, you have to make sure you have the permission to sell. And as an example, a firm like yours has a lot of buyers ready. Most builders will say, okay, we'll let you sell it to somebody, but you can't put it on the MLS system. So you can't find that tremendous pool of potential buyers. You need a brokerage company that already has a lot of potential people to sell to. So that's the first thing a seller needs to know. Like,
essentially buyer one.
Buyer one. Right. Like, do you have the permission from the builder? And then can you find a buyer to take your place and give you that profit? And then there is this HST issue. There's a lot of HST issues, but for a seller, if they were, for example, intending this to be an investment, this condominium, and let's say they paid $400,000 originally, and they want to sell it now for $500,000. Luckily, they're able to make a $100,000 profit. The Canada Revenue Agency says they have to be charging HST on that profit.
On the profit of $100,000?
Yes, and the buyer does not get this money back. This is not the same as the HST rebate between the builder and the buyer. So this is money just gone. And when I explain this to buyers, once the agreement comes in, they're refusing to pay this HST on the profit. So sellers need to know this, that when they calculate their profit, they probably have to build in whatever HST that they and their accountant will have to pay to the government.
So don't try to take the $100,000 to the casino, because that's not going to be.
It may not be $100,000.
Well, in that example.
And that's number one. But number two is that, as you know, when you sell a property, typically after a number of years, it's usually treated as a capital gain by the government, meaning that $100,000, you only pay tax on $50,000. Well, with an assignment, the government says, you never owned this property. You never closed with the builder. So that is not a capital gain. It's income, meaning you got to pay tax on the full $100,000. So now when you deduct the HST and the tax, and you got to pay real estate commission, you're not left with $100,000. So you need to understand this before you get involved with your accountant, before you make that decision.
You know, aside from like financial hardship, that's why we mention and talk to our investors about the long-term hold, right? Because yes, there might be $100,000 on paper you think you're going to get, but you deduct everything that you just spoke about, you're not going to profit that much. If you're able to hold on to it long-term.
Sure, if you can hold on to it longer, then you get the capital gain. Half of it is tax-free. If you rent it, you get expenses to write off again. So it's a different game.
Right.
But an assignment, you don't have the ability to do that. You may have no choice, but it's still better than losing money.
For sure.
Which some people have.
Now, buyer number 2 in the same scenario. What do they need to know?
So buyer number 2, again, they have to be very careful that they're not agreeing to pay HST on the profit. And how you word that contract is very important. That's why I always say to make these deals conditional on lawyer review, because the lawyers will be able to figure that out and explain that.
And we simply can just use a lawyer, like a due diligence condition, right, in that situation.
Yes. So number 1, there shouldn't be too much in the respect of the HST. However, built into the builder contract is typically a $25,000 HST rebate, which when you buy, as long as you move in yourself on closing, you get credit for it, and the builder gets it from the government. With an assignment, the new buyer, in most cases, they got to lay out that $25,000, but then they get it back about 6 weeks after closing. So it's a little bit different. They have to come up with a little bit of extra money on closing that the original buyer would not have, but they get it back, but for 6 weeks they're out of pocket. So that's one thing the new buyer has to be aware of. Also, they need to understand what the original contract was. Like, in other words, what are the additional charges? Like, the builder agreement might have been $400,000, but then there's a list of additional charges.
Let's talk about a couple of those charges.
So the main one is the levies or development charges. Now, a good agent who negotiates this in the beginning will make sure that these are capped, usually $5,000, $7,000. But there's still $7,000 that the new buyer is going to have to pay. So you've got to go through. And in my experience, a fair builder agreement is about 2% in additional charges that you should expect to pay. It includes the carry-on, warranty fee, enrollment, meter connections, etc. So this is what a buyer has to be prepared to pay on top of the original builder price and the profit. And now I looked at one of these yesterday, and I saw in the builder agreement, it said in the assignment clause, if the builder approves an assignment, they can remove all financial incentives given to the first buyer, which means all of a sudden there's no caps. So we had to say, wait a minute, this deal has to be conditional on the builder giving permission without removing those things. So this is why you have to read every clause, so you know the new buyer knows exactly what they're getting. But with a proper review, it's not a bad deal.
You mentioned it's very important to read all the clauses. I would go as far as saying, don't even read the clauses. Get the right people to read these clauses, right?
You really need. That's why you have your due diligence.
How big is a builder's document?
It's about 50 pages. You know, and the good news is that they're all the same. Completely unfair to the builder, which is why we'll talk about builders canceling projects.
Let's go right into that, because that's been such a hot topic. It just happened yesterday. What's your thoughts on this?
So what I tell people is every builder agreement is the same, and they can change their mind and cancel, and there's virtually nothing you can do except yell to the newspapers or the radio stations. And that's what all these 1,000 buyers are doing with these buildings that don't close, and they get a lawyer who wants to make a big class action, and this could take years. But to me, the answer is simple. No builder is ever going to change that. Like, if a buyer says, no, I'm not agreeing that you can have a right to cancel, they're just going to say, it's okay, we'll sell to somebody else. We have a lineup of 3,000 people who want to get into this building. So you have no leverage. However, what I say, and I know this is important to you, you have to research the builder. In other words, they may have built under different names, but they built projects. You go to those projects and you see, did they build on time? Did they deliver what they were supposed to? And did they fix all the problems? Those are the builders that you trust. The contracts are all the same. It's that research, and this is what I say to every buyer. I can look at the clauses, but you got to research the builder. And that, to me, is the secret.